WVW Broadcast Network is pleased to present In the Arena with Gold Star parents Billy and Karen Vaughn. Billy and Karen Vaughn are the parents of fallen Navy SEAL Aaron Vaughn, who is part of SEAL Team 6. On August 6, 2011, Aaron was killed in action in the Tangi River Valley of Afghanistan when a chopper called Extortion 17 carrying 30 Americans was shot down from the sky. The day Aaron's life ended, theirs began again. The Vaughns have emerged on the national scene as powerful spokespersons for not only our defenders still fighting on foreign soil, but also for the freedoms and prosperity here at home so many have sacrificed their lives to protect. Through the lens of hope and grave personal loss, their message is inspired by the firm belief that a representative republic is the noblest form of government ever devised by man and therefore demands protection. And now, here are your hosts, Billy and Karen Vaughn.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. This is an extraordinary honor. Our show is called In the Arena with Billy and Karen Vaughn, and we are, of course, Billy and Karen Vaughn. We're going to be telling you a lot about our story, what brought us to this point throughout this particular show, so you can get introduced a little bit to us and we can maybe get to know you a little bit through some of your comments. Billy and I have been married for 38 years. We have 3 children, Aaron, Tara, and Anna, and 6 amazing grandchildren, all of which are world changers, or those who aren't big enough yet. We're praying that they will be world changers, people who are completely engaged in what's happening in our country. We never expected to be in the position we're in today, and we're going to try to make that clear to you through this first show exactly what got us here.
Good morning, y'all, and I'd like to thank Brannon, Howse, and WVWTV for making this all possible for Karen and I. And our family has basically lived 2 lives, one before August 6, 2011, and then the life that we live today after that date. August 6, 2011 changed our lives and the lives of our family here on this earth forever. That was the day that a Chinook helicopter with a call sign Extortion 17 was shot down in the Tangi River Valley of Afghanistan. On that chopper were 17 Navy SEALs from SEAL Team 6, 5 SEAL Team 6 support, 3 Air Force Special Operations, and 5 National Guard and Army flight crew. One of those individuals was Aaron Vaughn, a member of SEAL Team 6. As Karen told you, our son, our only son, our firstborn son, we lost him that day, and sometimes I describe people to people as to what happened in our life that day. If it was like maybe if our life were a giant mirror, and that mirror represented our whole family. And on the day that Aaron died and left this world, a piece of that mirror was broken off. The rest of the mirror remained intact, but it was shattered. It was broken. And every member of our family, their lives affected.
A fracture through their lives.
A fracture of through their lives, and so we want to talk to you about Aaron, about his story, and as our shows go along, we'll move from that and we'll bring in guests who've been affected. Some of them, all Americans affected. Some in the things that have gone on in their lives, the way that it's happened with us, and we're going to share our lives with you.
And you know, here's the thing. This journey started on August 6, 2011, when, as Billy said, our only son, Aaron Carson Vaughn, a U.S. Navy SEAL with SEAL Team 6, lost his life in Afghanistan. That day, as he said, changed everything for us, but it did launch us onto a fascinating journey where we met so many fascinating people and continue to meet them. And the one reason that we wanted to do this show was to tell their stories as well, not just ours. And so we're going to be introducing you to those people. You know, we tried to raise our family with a knowledge and an understanding of the price that had been paid for their freedom, how to embrace it, how to appreciate it, how to respect its great, great value, and then ended up losing our firstborn child as the price for that freedom. I remember somebody saying to me, one of Aaron's, our son's classmates said this statement that stuck with me. They said, "Today my freedom has been purchased by the blood of a childhood friend." And for us, it was the first time we realized the extraordinary cost of freedom, because it had now been purchased by our only son. And it did change everything. But, you know, the thing is Aaron fought for this country, Billy, because he loved this nation. He did not fight. He did not want to be a Navy SEAL to play with cool toys. I mean, all that was going to be fun and exciting, and to do extraordinary adventure, to have that in his life. That's not why he fought. He chose to be a U.S. Navy SEAL, chose to fight in United States Armed Forces because he knew what had been given to him. He knew what had been provided to him to allow him to have the choices that he had through his life. And he wanted to be part of that long line of men and women who stood up in their generation, in their day, and took their place in America's history to protect and defend what had been protected and defended for him. And what we want to do right now, the best way we can introduce you to our son, unless you had something else you want to do. Okay, go ahead.
A couple other things first. And you need to know that as we talk to y'all and as we share with y'all in these shows, that we don't want to make you understand, because we believe that you understand just as we always have, what a precious gift we have in the United States of America. But what we do hope that you get out of this is, just like us, you realize what a price has been paid. You realize what we have, where we've come from, and if we are to preserve this republic, that it's up to us. It's up to us. It's up to those who we are raising now, that they realize how precious this gift is, as we look around this world and realize that those inalienable rights are almost only exercised in the United States of America. Rights that all men and women have around the world. Rights that all boys and girls have. But they're kept from exercising those rights. But in America, we're free because men and women give their lives, because men and women, citizens at home, have that great responsibility of protecting here within our borders what's been given to us by others. And even today, as we move forward, as Karen told you, what this has brought us into, how it's made us realize our responsibility now that our son has given so much for us to honor the sacrifice that he's made. And one of the things that our family has done as we've moved forward is we've started Operation 300, an organization that brings in boys and girls who've lost their dads in the military, and they have a camp that weekend. They do things, extreme things. They don't come in to a grief camp. They do things that they would have done with their dads, and they do those with men. And they shoot, and they do archery and sail and all those things that boys and girls grow up not impossible to do with their moms, but are usually dad things. And as we move along, you'll find out more and more about us. You'll find out about who we are. And Karen?
Yeah, all those things are what makes America great. The freedom to shoot bow and arrows, or learn to shoot a gun. The First Amendment right to speak freely like we are today about anything you want to speak about. We understand now what that costs. And I frequently tell people, I travel around the country and do speaking engagements, and Billy does as well. I talk about freedom and sacrifice. If you want to know more about that part of what we do, you can look at officialkarenvaughn.com. And if you want to know more about what Billy does, you look at forourson.us, FOROURSON.us. But one thing that I say when I speak that I think is critical, because it's just an easy example of what people, to just put people in touch with what it is I'm trying to say. And that's that if I gave you my wedding ring, if I said, look, this is just a gift to you, and I'm giving this to you, it's a very expensive ring. It took me 25 years to get this ring. But it's got unlimited value, extraordinary value to me. And this is a ring. If I gave this to you, this is a ring that you would pass on to the next generation. And then that daughter or son of yours would hold on to that ring until the next generation came, because they would understand value, because we understand value in signs and figures of dollar signs. That's easy for us. This cost X amount of dollars, so it's going to be protected. It's going to be defended. It's going to be guarded. It's going to be put in the safe when you leave your hotel room and you're on a trip because you know its value. Because you bought it. Because I bought it. I know its value. We bought it. We know its value. But here's the comparison. You talk about freedom, and people don't actually understand the value and the tremendous cost of freedom. And so we try to translate how you would guard a precious jewel compared to how you would guard what's been given to us by the blood of over 1.3 million patriots who've fought for this country, who have lost their lives fighting for this country. So we want to transfer that concept of the value that you pass this from generation to generation. And today we want to introduce you to our son. And the best way we can do that and tell the story about the morning of August 6th is through a video that was made by the organization that I work for. So don't be put off because it focuses more on me than Billy. It just happens to be a video that was made for the organization that I travel and speak with, American Warrior Initiative. So right now we're going to go to that video. I was only 19 when I had Aaron. And I don't even mind saying this, he was an unplanned pregnancy, you know? So Billy and I, we had one decision to make, and I loved Billy, he loved me, and we got married. And about 8 months later, we had a baby. I was a kid raising a kid. We both were, you know, but we had fun doing it. I wouldn't take anything for that. You know, Tara came along 21 months later, and we thought we were finished as a family, and then 10 years later, we adopted Anna.
First time I met her, me and my buddy were riding around, and we pulled up in the IGA parking lot, and Karen was over there talking to some of her friends, you know. She came over to the car to talk to me. Actually, I asked my buddy to go over there and tell her I'd like to talk to her, and so he went over and told her. I asked her out, but she told me she had a date that night. And she said, but I'm not doing anything the next night. And so Sunday night, that first Sunday night, we went out.
Our life was really interesting because I was raised as, you know, kind of a city girl, and Billy was raised on a farm. And so there was a lot of challenges to overcome, primarily because I felt like he was risking Aaron's life all the time. You know, Aaron was about 8 years old, I think, and, you know, he'd gone out to help Daddy work on the farm, you know. Billy had him on a four-wheeler with a rope tied to the four-wheeler and the other end of it tied to a tree he was cutting down. I hear this, put it in gear and pull, son, and I'm like, what? You know, we're all just a huge balance of our environment. I realize, you know, looking back, that was the chemistry that made Aaron just the perfect blend of, you know, rough and rugged, but also, you know, from my side, tender, you know, tender and kind. I always knew Aaron was special. We all did. Well, he had just an incredibly passionate heart for justice and righteousness. He was always the guy who took up for the underdog in every situation. Then came 9/11. A few months later, he came home on his 21st birthday. Yeah, you heard me right. He came home for dinner with us on his 21st birthday. He sat down across the table and he said, Mom and Dad, I stopped by the Navy recruiter's office on the way home from work, and I joined the SEAL Challenge program. And I was just struck with this weird mixture of awe and fear, because now we were at war, and pride. You know, that just overrode all of it, is just how proud I was of him.
He decided very early on he wanted to be a Navy SEAL. One day we were out on the farm, Saturday afternoon, but this particular day there was a news flash that came on. The Army Rangers had done something somewhere. He said, Dad, I think I want to be an Army Ranger. And he wasn't very old then. He wasn't even a teenager then. I said, you know, there's one group that's probably a little above the Army Rangers, you know. Well, what is that? And I said, U.S. Navy SEALs. Told him about them. You know, I said, they do everything the Rangers do, but they also do it in the air and in water too, you know. And he started telling everybody he was going to be a Navy SEAL.
By the time he was in middle school, it had become clear that he was a pretty tenacious football player. It was the Thursday before the first Friday night football game of his senior year. He had obliterated the anterior cruciate ligament in his left knee and had torn every other ligament. He rehabbed the knee. We went and found the best surgeon possible, and like within 6 months he was running a 4.40. I mean, we bought parachutes, we bought running shoes, we bought everything to rehab that knee fast, because he realized football was gone, but now he was just getting prepared to get in that SEAL Challenge program. You know, a little bit of time went by, and just before school got out, he was playing a pickup game of basketball with some friends, and he came down wrong on the knee. He had obliterated the anterior cruciate ligament again. Went back in for the second surgery. The doctor came out about 2 hours in and said, "Mr. and Mrs. Vaughn, there was nothing I could do. There's just nothing left, you know, in the knee to attach a new ACL to." He said Aaron is going to spend the rest of his life somewhat handicapped, and he'll never be able to do anything physical again without the use of a special brace. He was devastated. You know, he was 17 years old, and he had had this dream all of his life about going into the SEAL Challenge program as soon as he graduated high school. He was just like, okay, this is who I am, and I'm never going to be a Navy SEAL.
Obviously a very disturbing live shot there. That is the World Trade Center, and we have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center.
Remember, 9/11 changed everybody in the nation, and it changed something in him that none of us were aware of.
He came in to supper that night and told his mom and I that he had joined the SEAL Challenge program. And immediately I said, son, you'll never make it, not with your knee like that. And you know, his response was, Dad, if this is what God wants me to do, I'll be able to make it.
And I said, well, does the Navy know about your knee? And he's like, oh no, or they'd have never let me in the program. He said, I've known all my life, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I was created for. God is telling me right now to go do it. And there's a wall, you know, that goes up at Coronado Island across the top of Reed's first time every time. It means they completed every single evolution required of them the first time they tried it. He got on that wall, which was ridiculous. And no one ever knew about the knee. He couldn't even tape it because it would have given his secret away. Of course, every young guy wants to be a little Rambo. You know, when you grow up on a farm, you want to play with all those cool weapons and all those cool ATVs and stuff like that. But the primary reason he wanted to do what he did was to take his place in history fighting for his country. You know, because he loved this country so much. I look back on it and I thought about, our life and thought, you were prepared for everything by God.
Is taking responsibility for shooting down a U.S. helicopter. What do we know right now about this deadly incident?
That morning on August 6th, I had turned on Fox News, and not too long into the broadcast, they said that there was a chopper. Chopper had been shot down in Afghanistan. Didn't hit me too hard, just kind of nonchalantly said, Lord, just please don't let Aaron be on that chopper.
7:30, the phone rang. It was Billy, and Billy was on a trip. He was away from home, 3,500 miles away from home to be specific. I said, well, what is it, honey? And he said, well, listen, I don't want you to think that I'm saying this is it, but I've been up, for a few hours driving, and the news has come on that there was a helicopter shot down in Afghanistan last night. He said, the more details they give, the more it feels like it could be Aaron's team.
31 American troops now dead after a NATO helicopter crashes overnight.
And there are reports this morning that most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
When we hung up, I called Tara, our oldest daughter, and asked her to come over and be with her mother. And she started crying, and I told her, there's nothing to worry about. I just want you over there with her mother because she's probably going to worry.
She walked in the door smiling, and the kids were smiling, and I said, what are you doing here? And she said, Dad told me to come over, and we started trying to reason together that surely it can't be him. It can't be him. we decided to call Kimberly's parents, and we didn't want to call Kimberly and get her involved in the emotion we were experiencing right now until we needed to, and hopefully we wouldn't need to. And this time her father answered the phone. And I said, "Is Kimberly up yet?" He said, "Karen, it's bad." And I said, I know. And he said, "No, listen to me, Karen." He said, "Aaron was on the helicopter and there were no survivors."
I heard the doorbell ring, and I remember thinking, oh, it's just a neighbor. And I came upstairs, and I saw my father opening the door, and then coming inside in uniform, and I just fell to my knees.
30 American troops, including 22 Navy SEALs. Among them, 30-year-old Aaron Vaughn, the father of a boy not yet 2, a daughter whose birth he witnessed just 8 weeks ago, and the husband of Kimberly.
I don't know how to describe it. Just like the oxygen had been sucked out of my lungs. Just everything went black. And I finally realized the phone was still in my hand. Tara took it from me, and she just said, "You're going to be all right, Mom." She was so strong. It was amazing. She was so strong. She came in and sat down beside me and was just quiet, for a little bit. And all of a sudden she looked at me and she said, "Do you want me to call Dad?" That was the first time it had dawned on me that I knew this horrible thing that was going to change all of us forever. He didn't know. And I remember hearing her say, "Daddy, he's dead." She hadn't called him Daddy in 2 decades,
And I said, it's just really weird to say this, but it's all I could say. I said, "Okay, baby, I'll call you right back," because I didn't know what to say.
Billy's flight got in. He had to take a red eye, and we're on our way home. And Billy said, "Do you want to go to church?" And I said, Are you serious? You want to?" He goes, I would like to.
I said, "Our family needs to worship." And we worshiped. In the time of the worst pain that I've ever had, and it was very comforting. And I'll never forget when we walked into church, they were playing "How Great Thou Art." And I knew Aaron was there.
Aaron lived in pain. His greatest strength was his tenacity, and I remember him explaining to me, and I try to live like this now because he was absolutely right. He said, "One thing I've learned is that pain is in your mind." He said, "So I'll fix things when I've got a good time to fix them, but now's not the time." I often say to people, if you think America's not the greatest country on earth, what you need to do is turn your television off, stop listening to what people are telling you, and go out and look around you. This is the land that He gave His life for. Drive by any playground on a Saturday afternoon and see children laughing and playing freely, celebrating, whether they realize it or not, the right that they have to be free, that nobody's oppressing them, that nobody's giving them times that they can be out and times they can't. Or drive by a church parking lot on a Sunday afternoon and see people worshiping whatever God they choose to, and realize we're free, we're free. So I tell people, next time you're having a backyard barbecue, for crying out loud, just stop for a second and look around at what you get to live, what kind of life you get to live, because we're free. And then also realize that when you're hurting, Americans are going to come to your rescue. That's who we are as a nation. I've witnessed it 1,000 or more times. We are a good people, and we do appreciate sacrifice. We do have a generation growing up that aren't being taught that as much as generations prior.
It's amazing, like I talk to students, and when I'm done, they're coming up to me saying, I've never thought about my freedom that way. I've never thought about how good it is to be an American. Thank you. All they need is to be reminded of what we're really like instead of be told how bad we are. The opportunities that I've had to share in my faith, to share my story, to share Aaron's story, don't make any sense outside of the fact that God has created the opportunities and allowed it to be because He had a plan for me too. He gave His life to protect this country, and He was thankful that God had let Him do it. God provided Aaron with what he needed to do the impossible, and then He provided me with what I needed to do the impossible. My hope is that people live lives worthy of that level of sacrifice.
Our son Aaron died in at best, a very controversial military debacle. SEAL Team 6, Navy SEALs, the most lethal assault force the world has ever seen, flying in a helicopter, a CH-47C model, built in the 1960s, retrofitted in the 1980s. A chopper that, not according to me, I'm not a military expert, but according to Boeing, if you go look on the Boeing website, a CH-47 helicopter built to haul cargo, never built or designed to carry SEALs or any other assault force into battle, much less at night. And that debacle is best known as the shoot down of Extortion 17, and we'll be talking a lot about that as we go along. The things that, well, let me just say quickly that Karen and I never wanted to be where we are today. And there have been many, many times after the death of Aaron where we would find out things, where we would ask questions and things didn't add up. And it just seemed like it was such a mountain to climb with ridicule and intimidation that many times we looked at each other and said, did we just keep on going on with this? Did we keep on going? And after soul searching each time, and we would always decide, we have to go forward. There's too much at stake here. There's too much that's been lost. There's too much that's in front of this country, that's in front of boys and girls who will be coming up. There's too much at stake here for us to keep what we know silent. And so that's what's brought us to where we are today before you now telling this story.
So the world sees extortion, the shoot down of Extortion 17 as, a tremendous military loss of special operators and but for us it was much more personal. I frequently say that, the world lost a warrior when they lost our son, when our son was killed. But we lost our son, our firstborn child. So it's extraordinarily personal to us. Billy, that particular morning, you were 3,500 miles away from home. And I remember, as it said in that video you just watched, just grieving so much more, knowing that you were so far away from all of us and that you were going to have to do that alone. And I remember, frequently how hard it was being there in the house without you for about 24 hours waiting for you to get back to home. But your day was really unique because I had family around me. I had friends that immediately came and flooded our yard, and people lowering our flag in the front yard to half mast, which was really important to me because I knew that I'd driven by hundreds of yards through my life where they were full of cars at the wrong time of day, and you knew what was going on. You knew that somebody had died. And I remember when they lowered that flag to half-mast, it filled my heart with such a tender, beautiful feeling, because I knew then that people would know that, yes, somebody died today, and that's why our yard was full of cars, but because that flag was lowered, they would know that somebody had died for them. Billy, just tell our friends here just a little bit about your morning.
So I woke up on Saturday, August 6, 2011, in Burlington, Washington. I had my pickup truck out there delivering a camper. That was my employment at the time Aaron died, and delivering a camper that morning to British Columbia, Canada, out on Vancouver Island. And as I got in the truck that morning and headed out, I had my radio on Fox News, and there came on a Fox News alert that 31 Americans that a chopper had been shot down in Afghanistan, and 31 Americans were on board, and everyone was killed. And I guess Aaron had been in the service for a long time, and it's one of those things you never think could happen to you until it does. And I immediately just uttered a prayer out loud and said, Lord, I just pray that Aaron's not on that chopper. And you know what? All at the same time, I knew I was praying a prayer that I didn't think he was on that chopper, but I prayed that prayer, and immediately after I prayed that prayer, I thought to myself, how selfish of me, because 31 families have lost someone that they love very dearly to them. And by the way, I'm saying 31, it was 30, but the news was reporting 31 at the time. And you know how they do, they kept on giving updates just ever so often about this. It was a big event, but each update gave more detail. Then it was 31 Americans in the Tang River Valley. Then it was 30 Americans with Afghan commandos operating in Wardak Province in the Tang River Valley. And these updates began to get my attention more and more. And after that last update, I knew that's where Aaron was in Wardak Province. And I knew that the Navy SEALs were operating with Afghan commandos. And it was at that time that I finally called Karen and began to take it somewhat serious, and told her what I'd been hearing, and told her, I said, hon, you need, I'm sure there's nothing, but you need to try to find out some information from some of Aaron's friends or whatever, what's going on. And she did. We talked, and I hung up, and I immediately called our oldest daughter, Tara, who was married and had kids of her own, and our youngest daughter, Anna, was not at home. She'd spent the night with some friends. And I told Tara what I was hearing, and I said, Mom's at home by herself. I'd appreciate it, since I'm not there, if you just go over to the house and be with your mother. And Tara started crying, and I said, hon, don't worry, I'm sure there's nothing wrong. And by the time that I hung up that phone with my daughter, I believe a half hour or less passed before I got the call back that Aaron was indeed on that chopper, and he was dead. He was gone. He had gone to be with the Lord. And I want to tell you something. I remember that morning, because all this, these things, as Karen said, I was by myself, and I had a lot of time to think. And that morning, before I got in my truck and headed out, I'd prayed for my family back home, and I'd mentioned them by name, and I'd gone down the order like I always do, Karen and Aaron, and one after another, the kids and then the grandkids, and asked the Lord to be with them. And at the very end of that prayer, I prayed again for Aaron, and I said, Lord, just please protect Aaron today wherever he is. And the things that went through my mind a short time later, I can remember when my daughter Tara called, and she hadn't called me. As I said, she was married. She'd called me Dad for years and years. And when she called back, all she said to me was, and she was crying, she says, Daddy, he's dead. And I know y'all are going to think this is weird, but I couldn't think of anything to say except, okay, baby, I'll call you back. And I hung up the phone. And what I can remember is one of the first things that came out of my mouth. It actually came out loud as I spoke. God, you always knew this would happen. And the next thing was, as the sun was coming up there on that ferry in going across to Vancouver Island was, "Son, it's a beautiful morning, isn't it?" And not too long after that, I thought, "Wow, Lord, I prayed for you to protect him. You really protected him this morning." Listen, folks, I'm not making light of this. This was the greatest day of pain that I've ever experienced. But alone with myself and those thoughts, and the Lord and with Aaron, those are the things that went through my mind.
And I want to tell you guys, this is not going to be a religious show at all. We're going to talk about world events, what's happening in our government, so many critical things. But this is our story, and our story would not be truthful if we didn't tell you that we have a deep faith in Jesus. And one of the most important things that I will ever tell you about our son is that he gave his life to Jesus at a very young age. And because of that, we know that even though he died 7,000 miles away from all of us who loved him, he took his last breath in the arms of the one who loved him more than any of us could have loved him. We know where he is, and we know because of our faith in Christ we'll be with him again. Our journey since Aaron's death has taken us to some extraordinary places, and we're going to be sharing a lot about that with you. We've got to wrap this show up right now, but we'll weave those stories in, and we just want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for trusting us to join in with you in your lives and come into your house right now, wherever you're watching us. And we thank God for patriots who care about this nation and who care about its sustainability. And we really look forward to getting to know you. So thank you so much for being with us, and God bless you all.
Thank you all.